If you play with high gain tones, you already know the problem. Hiss, hum, buzz, that annoying noise that never fully goes away, especially when you stop playing. So today we're looking at a solution for that problem. We're checking out the NUX Huminator, a budget-friendly noise gate that claims to clean up your signal without compromising your tone. But does it actually work, or is it just another cheap pedal that cuts off your sustain? We're gonna find out. So what is a NUX Huminator anyway? Well, essentially it's a typical noise gate with your send and return option like the TCE Sentry noise gate or the Boss NS2, but it has a couple minor differences. And like all noise gates, it's designed to reduce unwanted hum, hiss, various feedback, nasty feedback, and it works especially well if you're using a high gain setup, like with a compressor and a tube screamer and then your distortion pedal. So the pedal itself, it's built around a 2-knob, very simple design. So it isn't really a pedal that you need a manual for, although the manual is pretty simple, and I urge you to check it out if you are confused about some of these things. I know sometimes I am as well. And it's clearly aimed at rock players, metal players, pretty much anybody who's using high output pickups, fuzz, distortion, things of that nature. It has a solid metal enclosure, so when it comes to the actual quality of the pedal, it's definitely not skimping out on anything because everything is rock solid. It's made out of some kind of like steel chassis or I don't know how you say it, chassis, I don't know. Chassis, yeah, I think that's it. The foot switch is responsive, it's not mushy. Now it is kind of loud, kind of like a Soul Food one or a Electro Harmonix pedal, but that's okay. And then the knobs turn pretty smoothly with no issue. It's not like they like act weird. As for the power, it runs on standard 9-volt power. And it also includes an easy battery access in the back of the unit like here. And here's a cool part that's easy to miss about this pedal. So even though the pedal itself runs off 9-volt, the internal circuit actually boosts it to 18 volts. So what that means is you get extra headroom, so it's not gonna sag or distort prematurely with high output pickups or other hot guitar signals. In other words, you get the benefit of higher voltage circuitry, but you don't need to change your power supply or anything of the sort. So I'm going to show you how to set it up in your signal chain, and we're going to do it the advanced way first, which is with the effects loop of the pedal. Now what's interesting about the manual is that it says here that you're supposed to connect the return of the effects loop into the input of your noisy pedal and then the send into the output of your noisy pedal. But I find that when I do that, it actually doesn't work and it just mutes everything entirely, so I can't actually hear anything when the pedal's engaged. So what I do is I actually put the send into the input and then the return into the output. And I find that I have better results with that. So I guess that means the manual is wrong then, and then it was a simple typo. So this is how it works when it's set up the way that I told you about, with the send into the input and then the output into the return. So it works good. But what happens when you flip it around like they said to do it? Well, I'll show you what happens then. Now you see that nothing works. Unless you turn off your pedals. But you notice how it doesn't work properly. Just totally cuts off the sound. Either way, using the effects loop of the Huminator, that's the best way to attack the noise in your rig with a little more precision. And the send and return option is what makes it a little more powerful than a basic noise gate. Instead of gating your entire signal the whole time, the effects loop isolates only the loudest units in your chain and lets everything else pass through unencumbered. This is what makes your gate feel a little more natural, and it goes without cutting off your sustain. Now in terms of what actually goes in the effects loop, you're gonna wanna put a certain type of guitar pedal in it, and that's distortion pedals, overdrives, fuzz pedals, boost pedals, amp preamp pedals. And you don't want to put things like delay, reverb, chorus, phasers, things of that nature. Any time-based delays you don't want to put in your effects loop. But what if you don't want to put it in the effects loop? Well, I'm going to show you how to do it the standard way as well. The The standard way of putting the gate in your chain is a lot more straightforward. Essentially, you don't even bother with the send and return on the pedal, and instead, you just put the gate after the noisiest pedals in your signal chain. So in my case, I usually put it after my compression, my distortion, and my boost as well. And in case you don't know, the Ahaji Steel Roar pedal, it's a very noisy pedal because it's just a budget metal pedal. And coupled with the Dynacomp, the boost in the metal roar, and then also the Ibanez Tube Screamer, that's a recipe for a lot of noise. But as you can see, the Huminator takes care of that just fine. So now we've obviously got to talk about the controls. And the pedal is straightforward to dial in. The threshold controls how much signal is actually required before the gate opens. If it's set too low, the noise still comes in, but if it's set too high, the noise gets chopped off. And that's how you get the sound where it's like chopping off your sustain of your natural sound. By the way, if you're looking for something to practice, get my fretboard memorization cheat sheet from travelingguitarist.com/fretboard cheat sheet. What it is it's all the triads, the major and minor triads in every single key. Through the octave mapping technique and through a couple other techniques, you can actually just learn to memorize not only the notes of the fretboard, but you can also learn how to improvise in a bunch of different keys by understanding the the foundation of harmony, which is the triads, right? The foundation of chords. You can also sign up to my forum at forum.travelingguitarist.com. There you can chat with people about guitar and music and whatever else you'd like. The decay, on the other hand, that controls how fast the gate closes after you stop playing. A faster decay gives like a very tight, chopped, metal chugged feel. Whereas a slower decay gives more sustain, more of a natural sound because it slows down how much the signal is being gated. So what about the mute mode? Well, the mute mode on the pedal, that's actually like a silent kill switch on the pedal. So when you engage that and then you click on the pedal, that's actually just gonna shut all the noise down from your rig, like everything. Nothing is gonna get through. Reduction mode, on the other hand, that just functions as a regular gate. And finally, we got to talk about the LED display on this because despite the fact that the pedal is so cheap and inexpensive, this LED display is like very responsive, and I think it's a very nice touch for the unit. Essentially, it just tells you whether or not the gate is actually working. So when your signal is being gated, it's going to turn green. If the gate is completely open and nothing's happening, that means that it's just going to there's going to be no color on the display at all. If the color of the display turns orange, that means it's almost completely muted. And then if it turns red, that means it's totally shut down and totally muted. And that's one of the major differences between this pedal and the Sentry Noise Gate and also the Boss NS2, because neither of those pedals have a nice LED display. Although I'm sure you can buy different versions of those pedals that will have it. But ultimately, I feel the LED display is a nice little touch that actually gives it a bonus for me. It makes me put it higher on the chart in terms of its competitiveness with other pedals. There's just something about a display that just makes it seem like a little bit better as a unit. On clean tones, the Huminator is fairly transparent when the threshold is set correctly. There's no obvious tone loss or pumping, and there's no noticeable volume drop either. As a matter of fact, I use it with clean tones all the time, and I usually just have the Huminator on at every moment. That said, this pedal is definitely going to perform the best when you're using the send and return option, and that's without a doubt. I find that it just flat out works way better and it's way more precise. Almost to the point where I wouldn't even want to use it any other way. As a matter of fact, when I try to use it the normal way, sometimes I get inconsistent results. For instance, I can't get it so that it will respond properly to the hiss of the metal roar pedal, just as one example. I end up having to turn up the threshold too much to get it to work, but this isn't a problem if I use the send and return jacks. As I showed you earlier, the pedal shines when you're using it in a high gain context. It's gonna tighten everything up and it's gonna make your palm mutes sound better and so on. Unfortunately, it's not as precise as premium gates like the TCE Sentry Noise Gate or the Boss NS2, but for the price point, it works really well. And at the end of the day, that's what I want to talk about. I want to talk about the pros and cons of this device. And that first one is definitely the price. You can't really beat the price of the NUX Huminator, which is about a third of the price of some of these other more expensive gates. Sometimes it's even a quarter of the price of some of these more expensive gates. It has simple and intuitive controls. It has solid build quality. It works well with high gain tones. Doesn't completely kill sustain. And it has the send and return option, which most cheap gates simply don't have. And it also has a cool LED display, which I really appreciated. As for the cons, it's just not as precise as some of the better gates out there. So it's going to require very careful threshold adjustment. And then the manual isn't that great either, because like I showed you before, it's just flat out wrong. But when you wrap everything up, my final opinion is that you can't really go wrong at this price point. Sure, the pedal itself, it isn't as good as the Boss NS2. It's not as good as the Sentry Noise Gate. It's not as good as like the ISP Decimator with the send and return jacks. But when you're paying 60, 70 bucks for a premium noise gate, or excuse me, a budget noise gate, and it's got the send and return jack, and it works well, I actually find it works better than my Electro Harmonix silencer. For whatever reason, that thing stopped working for me, which is very disappointing. For the price point, I mean, it works great. You know, there's not much else to say about it, you know. But again, it's worth iterating that if you're looking for something to be super precise and super amazing for a cheap price, and it's just that isn't what the pedal is going to be able to do. But for the price, it's going to perform what you expect it to. Additionally, if you have the ISP decimator or something like that, which I do, you could put that at the end of your chain with all of your noisy pedals in the send and return of the new Xhuminator. And I think that's a nice alternative to having to go out and spend all this money on more expensive gates.